and bring about the freedom of these people by any means necessary.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's your boy Big Kev with Drew the Yardie. Welcome to another session of the Uprising Podcast. Today is going to be a special one. So before we get started, we do want to give shout outs to all of our show sponsors, one being Black Rhino Logistics, and we also would like to welcome Big Drew for he had a little issue this morning, but he showed up despite everything going on around him. So thank you for being here on time, brother.
Hey man, anything for my brother.
But anyway, like I said, man, we got a special one here today. Again, thank you to Black Rhino Logistics, and anyone out there that would like to participate and advertise on this podcast, we welcome you now. It is a free spotlight for the time being, but that will probably change here in the future. So if you would like to be spotlighted on one of our podcasts, then by all means, please contact us via our links that we will have available for you in the description box. So having said that, I have two very special guests that are joining us today. And make no mistake about it, I know these brothers. They're very well versed in their field of expertise. One being a very, very well established author, Kevin Hodge Nyblack, and one being a very well established financial investment. I can call him a guru. All right, I'm going to call Terrence a guru because I remember this brother when I first met him. He was not the guru that he is now.
But that's true.
But Terrence has finagled his way through the system. He's found out how it works, and he understands the ins and outs of money. He knows how investment works and things of that nature. So we have these two brothers here that have two very different perspectives that we would like to bring in as far as what is going on in our current climate for our community, for our people, because we need that now. We are in a very dire situation, Mr. Big Yardie. And we have these conversations quite often, so we need to find out where we're going with this. Mm-hmm. So before we do that, Drew, do you have anything that you would like to address, sir?
Actually, again, just like you did, I want to welcome these brothers and thank you guys for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join Kevin and myself. I know he does, but I really appreciate it as well. And hey, Terrence, man, I gotta get with you on some of that financial stuff, man.
Yeah, listen, the brother knows his stuff, man. He knows his stuff.
Sir.
So,
yes, sir.
Before we do that, for those of you that are watching this on YouTube, please, we ask you if you would not mind to just go ahead and please hit the like button. The algorithms in the YouTube community have changed drastically. Oh, man. And if you don't, it's going to be really hard for you to find the channel because it's so new. But if you would please do us that favor, it's free. Just hit the like button. And please share the content because the words that you're going to hear today, the information that you're going to be given today, we need that to resonate in the lives of those that have been affected, not only by the tragedies that have happened from not just black lives that have been lost at the hands of police, but lives, period, that have been lost at the hands of just injustice around the globe. So these words need to resonate in all lives right now. But like I stated before, Drew, I'm not saying that our lives, that black lives do not matter, or other lives that are not black don't matter. Mm-hmm. But my community matters right now because we are in dire distress. So my question to you all is, where do we go from here? 1525 to 1866 started the most hellacious beginning to the black existence and the introduction to not only Western civilization, but what's known by most of us in the world, in the modern world, as the transatlantic slave trade. 12.5 million men, women, and children were brutally assaulted, kidnapped, and sold into bondage and servitude, some by peoples looking exactly like us. Pre-boarding slave ships, these are things that they never taught us in school. Pre-boarding, before they even got on the ship. They were stripped of their clothes. They were completely shaven from head to toe. Non-exempt children, but men and women completely shaven from head to toe. And all of them were forced to live in cramped cabins, pre-built cabins on the decks of all slave ships. They sat there for weeks. Now, I've never been to Africa, but I know that they have an exuberant amount of heat. Back in that day, heat was probably 10 times, I don't know if it was hotter then than it is now, but they were forced to live in these cabins for weeks, sometimes months at a time, while they prepared them to be shipped to the new world. Once sailing commenced, slaves were forced to live below deck, sometimes 3 decks below the main deck of the cabin, 4.5 feet high, things we were not taught in school. Chained by twos, all the men were chained by two, hand and foot, and packed in these small compartments, laying for weeks at a time for the duration of the trip. Segregated by age, segregated by sex. Men were at the forward helm of the ship, women were forced to the rear helm of the ship, and children were left unshackled. No plumbing available. Now, these are the things that we don't realize what actually happened. And there's a reason why we have to cover this now. Because I need to find out from all 3 of you brothers, where do we go from here? No plumbing was available at that time. They were all forced to relieve themselves where they were in place. Think about this. We have urine. We have human feces. We have vomiting from the heat. We have all forms of human bodily fluids combined with extreme heat and extremely limited ventilation. This was the ultimate recipe for the rampant, and when I say rampant, I mean the rampant amount of disease that would plague the entire ship. We had diseases from measles to smallpox to influenza to scurvy and dysentery. Sorry. Most slaves spent 8 hours on the deck of the ship, separated by something called a barricado, which kept the slave ship's crew separate from the slaves themselves, which kept them from being involved in any type of revolt and saved them from danger. They were forced to eat rice. They were also forced to eat beans. And those that refused to eat in an attempt to protest or commit suicide via starvation were forced to eat via a device called a speculum oris, which was shoved in their mouths and cranked open while they forced the food down their throat for them to somehow preserve what they were considered to be cargo. Women that were on the ship were mostly sexually assaulted, raped, and beaten. Some arriving to the new world impregnated by their attackers. Most preferred death over enslavement and attempted to jump that ship rather than live in servitude. But due to the major netting that they had built around the slave ships, this was oftentimes impossible. But to understand, and this is something that we were not taught, to understand the evils of the slave trade, we often have to look back to the trial of the Zong, which was the most famous trial that had 132 slaves that were intentionally murdered. And when I mean murdered, they were thrown overboard because the ship was running low on clean, fresh water. After centuries of slavery, injustice, and countless years of police brutality, economic depression, and we have to admit, self-inflicted wounds, untreated and unrecognized post-traumatic slave disorder, we have to continue to ask ourselves, not only on this podcast, but in our communities, where do we go from here? We've had countless marches.
We've had leaders in our community such as Marcus Garvey, W.E.B. Du Bois, Frederick Douglass, Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, Thurgood Marshall, Ella Baker, Daisy Bates, Fannie Lou Hamer.
Famously known for nobody's free until everybody's free. Malcolm X, by any means necessary. The Martin Luther King, I have a dream. We've had the riots of the 60s in Birmingham. In 63, we had 64, we had Harlem, New York. In 65, we had Watts. 66 was Chicago. 1967 gave us Tampa, Cincinnati, Newark, Plainfield, New Brunswick, Detroit, St. Louis, Mobile, etc. 110 cities rioted in the 60s. What do we have now? The same exact thing. Yet again, here we are, same problem, same place, different time. Time and time again, we have been peaceful and forgiving people. For decades, we've had the knee of oppression on our necks, but it physically or systematically through subliminal undercurrents such as redlining and to the economically ravaged inner cities to the income gap. Yet we forgive and forgive and forgive. And we ask yet again for us to please be seated at the table of opportunity time and time again. There has been change. There has been advancement. But for every one black person that makes it in this country, 50 are left in disaster. We're 13.4% of the U.S. population. Hispanics now, according to the census, are 18.3% of the population, and whites hold a staggering 60.4% of the population. We are resilient, but we are resilient without action. This action or this lack of action is destroying not only our communities, but the entire future of Black America in this country for generations to come. We need tangible political currency, which I spoke about before with you, Drew. We need tangible political currency, and we need it now. We must take action. We must have introspection of ourselves, and we also must have introspection of our communities. We must bring an effectual change now, not tomorrow, not last week. It has to be done now. Just protesting in the streets and destroying the communities that we have, it only deepens the abyss in which we have found ourselves. So all three of you brothers, I'm still asking you right now, where do we go from here?
Man.
I told you I'm feeling this. I told you I'm feeling this. I told you. So we need to know, where do we go from here?
Well, you just nailed it right there with your commentary. History, learning your history, learning about, where we come from, the different plight, different dispensations of life, of our journey. A lot of us don't know that to understand where we can go in the future.
Yeah.
Solutions, many solutions. My main solution is vote.
Voting.
Yes, sir.
That it's a tool. It's a tool. If you notice, I was born in 1960, so I know I'm young. I'm a little older than my cousin. I don't know about the two other brothers, but we made strides through voting. But somewhere along the line, we stopped doing that.
Yes.
Doesn't make a difference what party you go to. That's a whole different ballgame with the Democrats versus the Republicans and independents. But I think voting gives you a tool to change things within your community, not so much on a national level, but in the community where things directly affect you. PTA meetings,
right?
Your local commissioners and things, your mayors, people who affect you on a daily basis. We don't get involved in that. That reflects the policing in your neighborhood. Why do we have people that don't look like us in our community, for the most part, policing us?
Right.
My father, George Not Black, was a police officer in Asbury Park. You probably can count on one hand, how many times he actually arrested somebody, because he had communication and he was involved within the community. They knew him. There go George walking down the street.
Right.
We don't have that no more. Cops don't walk the beat no more.
No.
So yeah, my thing is voting. That's just one.
So, Kevin, what would you say to most of the disgruntled Black people in this country that do not believe in the voting process, that they think that has failed them? because I have a lot of folks that I talk to that I know personally that say one group will say one thing and another says something else. For the ancestors that came before us, for those that fought in the 60s and the 40s and 50s and whatever, it's disrespectful not to vote. And then there are others that say it doesn't matter if you vote because the cabal or the deep state or whomever, they control the system anyway. So you voting makes really no difference. What do you say? How do you address that? Because we have this undertone in our community that a lot, they really don't understand the process of voting, or they don't believe in the system at all.
Education, understanding the process of what voting does, give them examples when we couldn't vote compared to how things are now. We have many Black officials in different high places from the top all the way down. Also, if you don't vote, see what happens when you don't vote. We have that prime example of what's going on right now. We all voted when President Obama, that's a prime example right there. They got on the bandwagon when the first Black president was running. Everybody got on the bandwagon, and we just did wonders. I mean, I'm talking about from the hip hop generation to everybody. Everybody got involved in that. But when even President Obama said, "Hey, listen, you have to support me in the midterm election." This is his first term. That was the most important midterm elections right then and there. Nobody, rappers, anybody, no one pushed the agenda like they did when he was running initially.
Right.
And that right there affect us to this day, because what happened? We got the judges in there now, so on and so on and so on. So I think education, we have to some kind of way drive the point that if you don't vote, the only other option is what they're doing right now.
Is in the streets.
In the streets.
Terrence, man, me and you chop this up, bro. Like, so I don't even have to, I really don't need to, I should introduce this brother, but his words is going to speak for him. And Kevin, he's like you. He's powerful. He's Drew. This man is strong. He knows, he's not the normal, if I can say, he's not your typical Negro bot that's running the street that don't understand the intricacies of what's really going on. So this man is tuned in. He's tapped in. He's on deck. Terrence, we talked about this.
We talked about this. So please let's figure out what's enlighten us here.
I'm me. I'm on the other side of the voting process. The other brother Kevin spoke about education, which is something I spoke with you about. In terms of voting, I've always often said that the poor and uneducated are told to vote, and the wealthy and educated are told to lobby. Two different fields. We voted and we marched. And from the marching of Dr. King, we got a bill of a Fair Housing Act put into law. And after that, our votes hadn't mattered. One reason why is because most people don't know the history of the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. See, the Republican Party was known as the anti-slavery party. So they were against our people being in slavery. So when you go all the way back to when the Civil Rights Act was initiated in 1964, you had Lyndon B. Johnson, who was a little upset about that because they could not keep us enslaved, and because we were the majority. Most people don't know that, but we were the majority when it came to the voting. So because of that, he said in 1965 that I'll make sure all those niggas vote Democrat for 200 years. Well, the Democratic Party started the KKK and so on and so forth. So our voting only got us so far. As the brother alluded to earlier, education is very important. When they pushed for Obama to be elected into office, I believe that a lot of us looked at it and said, hey, we got a face that we can recognize, so let's vote and let's get behind them. Each one of these candidates, I don't care what party they are, have an agenda. The problem with us is we're not educated on the agendas of each individual candidate. we're not even educated on the individual candidates in our cities, whether that be the mayor on up to the governor of our cities. So we need to understand that lobbying is more important than voting, because once we understand the economic climate, then you understand this is how laws get put into place. And I've often said this, you know, you have George Soros, you have the Koch brothers, you have a number of people that I could go off the top of my head and give you who go to Congress and lobby in laws for people who vote. And this is the reason as to why we are where we are. You have a multitude of Black billionaires in this country who have the money and the finances to do what George Soros and the Koch brothers do, which is to go and lobby to Congress to get things put on the books and into law. One of which we're still not considered human beings in the eyes of the law. As much as our people don't want to accept it, but we're not. Right. We're still considered property.
Now, well, hold
Dred
on.
Scott versus what?
Now, Terrence, now you say that, but you're also, and Drew, you're gonna tap in on this in a second. You have to face those people that are not on the liberal side, that have made it, that have successfully made it. Yeah. How do we address those that have never seen racism, so to speak, or they say that really systemic racism is non-existent? The fact that someone can say that we're still 3/5 of a human or 3/5 of a man, you know, all of this, but they've never experienced that. But they will tell you that what you're saying is hyperbole, that this is not. How do we address that? Because again, that along with what I asked Kevin, that is still, you know, prevalent in our society, in our neighborhoods, because there are a lot of people that are successful that are Black that say, you know, they treat me like they treat their own.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I'm a prime example of it. I mean, you know, I could have easily, I'm in real estate, and I could have easily believed, you know, that redlining was going to stop me from becoming a real estate investor. It hasn't. Only because I took the time to educate myself on how to navigate the systematic system. So when you educate yourself on how to maneuver, for lack of a better term, with the wolves, you're able to not get eaten. And I think a lot of times we in the community, we have people with the knowledge to give back, but a lot of times our people don't want to hear sometimes the knowledge that we have to give them.
Right.
When you're, you know, in a situation where you haven't had very many positive things happen to you, sometimes it's very difficult to accept that you can get out of those situations. You can move forward. And when those people say, hey, man, I've never experienced systematic racism, a lot of them haven't. You know, I just watched an interview the other day on television. They were asking one of the Trump people from the administration, hey, does systematic racism exist? And he said no. And a lot of our people got upset. And the truth of the matter is he just doesn't see it.
Right.
It's not where he is. So he can't tell you that it is systematic racism. And a lot of the people that have made it, they can't tell you that, oh, you know, systematic racism still exists, because they didn't see it. You know, and let's be real, a lot of us don't see it. And I can tell you why. You go and you ask, look at the numbers and see how many of us own one piece of property. I often tell people generational wealth starts with owning your own home. Now you look at the numbers and see how many of our demographic own our own homes in our own communities. Very little.
Right.
And the thing about it is they don't even know that there's redlining. They don't even know that there was a HUMIC Act. They just don't know how to go out here and purchase a home the proper way to start generational wealth for their family. I mean, so a lot of times, like the brother said before, it's really just education.
Right.
It boils down to understanding the education of how the game is being played. And we don't do that. We just don't educate ourselves enough. You know,
I think we play checkers instead of playing chess.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally. Because, you know, you this is the way the game works, man. You can look at any major city, any big time mall in the city, and ask yourself how many bookstores are in that mall. But I can guarantee you there's a lot of stores in there that'll sell you a $200 pair of Jordans. Guarantee it.
Yeah.
And we'll go buy that $200 pair of Jordans before we go buy a $50 book that can teach you about economic wealth and empowerment in this country.
Right. Drew, come on, bro.
Yeah, no, you know, I'm listening to these two brothers, man. A lot of knowledge, and I come from a totally different perspective. I mean, man, I got goosebumps. I don't even know why, man. I'm listening to you guys, and I'm like, everything that you guys are saying, a lot of stuff you guys are saying, I'm sitting here like nodding, like, yeah. You know, I'm Jamaican, and basically the short version is, you know, I have two halves of family. I'm the only child for my mom, my dad. They have other children, so all my siblings are half siblings. And I have 4 brothers and 1 sister on my mom's side. I have 2 brothers, 2 sisters on my dad's side. My mom's children came over to the United States probably within the last 20 to 25 years, okay? 2 of my brothers own their own businesses. 3 of my brothers, including myself, own our own homes. To allude to what Terrence was saying, right? Owning at least one piece of property, right? These are immigrants, man, that came over here. Didn't even really speak the language, so to speak, speaking that straight up hardcore patois. Like, you know, people don't really understand what you're saying, but they navigated the system. And as I'm listening to you guys and you talk about that systematic racism, it's not that it's not there. It's just my family, when we came here, we didn't have time for that. I'm not saying, you know, I expect Black Americans to get up every day and act like it's not real and it doesn't exist, because it don't matter, it's still there. What I'm saying is, my mom used to tell us, I ain't got time for that. You know, my mom came here back in the early 80s and started 2 businesses. One for my stepdad and one for herself. She started a cleaning business where, I tell the story, she took all of her boss's clients. My mom used to go down to the Fort Lauderdale beach and clean all these wealthy white folks' homes in these high-rise buildings. And I used to get off school, want to go play ball. Now I got to go clean houses with my mom. I'm mad as hell. But I learned. Looking back now, I realized I was learning from her. I saw my mom sat down one day with one of these old white ladies, and she asked her, you know, I don't remember their names, but she's like, how much this lady charging you for me to clean your house? And she told my mom. And my mom laughed. She had this way about her, man. My mom laughed and said, I'll charge you half of that to clean your house. And the lady was like, really? Long story short, she took every single one of this woman's clients and started her own cleaning business that she could then pass off. My stepfather was a construction guy. She started a construction business for him. My stepdad went on to do houses for, just to give an example, he worked on Pat Riley's house in Miami. We didn't build it. He did remodeling to it. He could have had the job to do that stadium, the Miami Heat Stadium. He was afraid it was too big for him. Looking back now, if that was some white guy, I'm sure as hell he would have figured a way to take that and do it. You know, I'm saying all that to say education was key, right? Education is key, as both brothers said. We have to educate ourselves. Last week, Kevin and I was talking, and I brought up my sister, Anne-Marie, who lives in Toronto. This is my father's side, and I brought her up. I mentioned her a lot because me and her talk, and we have these conversations. And to what Kevin was saying, other Kevin, Mr. Hodge was saying, voting. My sister got on that a lot. In Canada, I asked her, what's the difference there between, you know, the Black people in Canada and the Black people here in the States? Because she's been here a lot. And I asked her, how do you vote? How do you guys vote? And she told me, she said, listen, I pay attention to the individuals we're running. And we start on the local level. You start on the local level and you vote for your needs, your particular needs and your community's needs. That's how she said she votes. And those votes go up this ladder, you know, from the local level all the way up to whatever party, I guess, has the most votes, starting from the local level. Their guy gets to be prime minister, right? We don't do that here. And I was talking to non-Black here about that, like, dude, what's the deal with Black Americans always voting Democrat? Is that the Black American tradition? Is you know what I mean? Is that like a traditional thing? Because I'm gonna be straight up, man, I did not vote for Obama. You know what I mean? Two of my brothers were really mad with me, and I told them, I said, if Mom was here, she probably wouldn't have voted for dude either, man. But it was for different reasons why I didn't vote for it. See, I would not call myself a Christian. I do have all the beliefs, but I'm not going to tie myself to Christianity and the Catholics and all that. I'm a servant of the Most High. You know what I mean? I believe in the Word. I study the Word, me and my wife, my family. So because of those views that I have, I didn't agree with a lot of what Obama supported. And long term, he did push all of that in our faces as Black people. He did more for some groups than he did for us. I'm like, bro, you're the first Black president. You know what you could have achieved? You could have done so much. I'm not saying, like, again, we're not looking for handouts, man. Black people are proud people, man. I'm looking at you brothers. You guys aren't even saying nothing. I'm just looking at you guys and listening to you talking. There's a certain amount of pride that I can hear in your voice. And that starts with education. You guys are intelligent brothers. You're intelligent. You know what I mean? You know your stuff. As Kevin says, you guys are experts in your particular fields. You know what I mean? Me sitting here talking to you guys as a Jamaican dude, man, I feel so good right now. I'm chopping it up with 3 intelligent brothers that I can learn from. Something I learned a long time ago, and I learned it from a white guy. He said, man, look, if you're ever in a room where you're the smartest person, leave. Go into another room.
Go somewhere else. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Where you can learn from people.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up in a lot of ways without a father figure. My stepdad was there, but the dude, all he did was work. When I did live in Canada with my father, all my father did was work. I didn't really have so much of a father figure. I actually learned from my friends' fathers. When I went to their house, I listened to the conversation they were having with their dads. I would go home and look stuff up and read. Education.
Yeah. So,
why buy a pair of $200 pair of shoes when you can buy a $50 book, as Terrence said? You know what I mean?
So Kevin, would you think that that's, the education is an issue? Would you think this is a cultural thing? Like we spoke on this last time. I have my own little set of ideas of what I think we need to do with our education system. But people are like, listen. People are tired. Like they're ready for something now.
Okay, so what we have in our community now is we have the BLM. We are being infiltrated. We are being. I don't know what's happened, but the energy that was with civil justice, so to speak, if you can put it in that capsule, that energy has been shifted to something else. That grassroots base of people that want change. They're tired. There's a group of guys, 200 people down in Georgia, Stone Mountain, this couple of days ago, armed, like ready. They ready for the smoke. What we have to figure out what's going to happen and where do we go? What do we do? How do we invoke some kind of change where when this dies down, we're not just sitting here left empty-handed with burned down neighborhoods, with charred buildings, and we are still in a financial disarray. We still have people that are probably going to be killed at some point by other blacks and other police. We're still going to have children that are being influenced by an education system that is not catered to us. It's not catered to us. We're still going to have people wondering, why aren't they teaching us about financial responsibility in school? What do we do now? Kevin, where do we go here? What do we do? What do we say?
But to touch up on my brother right there, he said something about Obama. 2 things about Obama presidency. The first thing was, as far as from a black perspective, we thought that would inspire folks, all through life. Oh, you could be the president of the United States. You can do this. You can do that. Bam. Okay, we got a black president. Oh man, that was supposed to inspire the generation behind me and the generation behind that generation. That was supposed to inspire. The other thing is, President Obama, when he was in, he was up against a wall, not making no excuse for him. Everything he tried to put through, they knocked it down. I mean, even the first State of the Union he had, they make sure he's going to be a one-term president. But the bottom line is self-responsibility. We got to stop looking out for handouts. That's if you really want to get to it.
Thank you, brother.
Independent, a Democrat or a Republican, none of them can help you. The bottom line is you got to help yourself. And see, the thing about it is, first of all, we ain't going to get our 40 acres in the middle. We're going to wait forever for that. All right? You have to take your responsibility. When I do my motivational speaking, I have this acronym called DREAM. D stands for determination. You got to be determined to get out of your situation.
Yeah.
You got to get out of your situation before you can help anybody else. Right?
Right.
You got to take responsibility. You got to take responsibility for your failures. You can't blame this person or that person, my mom, my dad, the white man, or whatever. You got to take responsibility. You got to embrace. You got to embrace failure. When you fail, you learn from that. You educate yourself. Oh, I messed this up. I'm not going to quit. I can go this way. You know, attitude, motivation.
Some of the stuff that you just said, we talked about. You remember we talked, Drew, when he just mentioned about when we talked about being like kids being product of their environment. Yeah. So there are some brothers that ain't never left their neighborhood. Right. They don't even know what it looked like in another state. They've never been on a plane. Never been to a different country. So hipping on what you just said, Kevin, me and Drew talked one day, and I gave him the whole. I think I called it the tank, fish tank mentality. So if you take a particular fish or reptile or whatever, and you put them in an enclosed environment, they can only grow as big as their environment. But if you don't allow them to expand and grow in their natural habitat, or take them out of that tank, then they'll always be that confined. You know what I mean, Kevin?
Right.
That confined space, and it's almost like negative energy, positive energy. Terrence, you know about the chakras and all this. So when we look at water, right? We look at a stream of water. It flows. That is the cleanest water that you will find on the planet of the earth. But if you take a swamp or you take a pond that is stagnant, it's just sitting in this confined space, and there is no flow, there's no positive energy. It cannot build the neutrons and the ions and the positive, all that stuff that is those minerals in the water. It will get stagnant and stink, and it will be foul. And it's like the same thing with these like people like the brothers, the young kids. And then our biggest thing is liberating our youth. So, you know, emphasizing what you're saying, Kevin, we talked about that before, that, you know, we have to figure out how to get kids out of these communities to show them that there is more to life than just being on that block.
But it also takes, it goes back to responsibility and choices.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I graduated, and y'all probably have the same kind of experience. I graduated from a school in the hood, okay? I don't know, 200, class of 200. Out of them 200, right, when we all starting on the same starting line. We all poor. We all got the same issues in the hood, rob, all kinds of stuff. But we starting at the same finish line. How come only 6 or 7% make it, quote unquote? Choices. It comes to individual choices. I'm no better than the next man. Or I say, hey, listen, I'm going to join the army. I ain't joining the white man army. Oh, okay, all right. You have to find a vehicle. Everybody can't be a basketball player. Everybody can't be a rapper.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with being a real estate guru. There's nothing wrong with being an IT guy. There's nothing wrong with being so you have to find a vehicle to get yourself out of that situation. Whether it's getting out of the hood, there's nothing wrong with staying in the hood.
Right.
There's nothing wrong at all. But it's all about choices. I had them choices. I had choices to sell drugs. I had a choice to be a pimp. You had these choices. But the bottom line is you only can help individuals to a certain degree. Now, there's some situations where the kids that really don't have no choices. They're just born in the bad situations. I got that, but you got to take responsibility to a certain degree. That's just me, the way I feel.
Right, Terrence. So, is there a way, a mass educational way, to teach these guys that stop gang banging on the block over colors, over property that you don't own?
Like you slaying this brown brother, this Hispanic brother, this black brother, because you know they might rep Great Street Crips. You got this guy with roller 60s or whomever. They wearing a different color. They doing whatever, whatnot on a block that you do not own. Absolutely. Is there a way that we can somehow impute certain knowledges to these youth that are in these areas? So to get them to break this vicious cycle of killing each other and trying to incorporate, I mean, let's just face it, your gangbangers or your hood boys or your whomever, they are probably some of the most powerful entrepreneurs, strongest entrepreneurs that we know. They don't have any backing. They take the most risk and danger every day. They sell their product. I'm not promoting drug, and all this other stuff. Not promoting that, but I'm trying to reach a particular I don't know what it is in them, something in them that they can use. They can pull the positive out of the negative and figure out a way to own their neighborhoods. How can we do that, Terrence?
Well, first of all, you have to, for those of us that have made it out, got to go back. We got to go back and we got to give them the education and what we used, the tools that we used to get out of there. Because like you just said, the majority of the guys that are in the hoods that are doing this are very, very intelligent. Number one, that's the main key to being an entrepreneur anyway, is being a risk taker. And you have to take risks in order to get to where you want to be in life. But we don't have anybody that goes back and says, hey, this is how you do it. Most people get on the ladder and they climb up the ladder, but they don't reach back to grab another one and say, hey, get on here, I'm gonna help you climb the ladder behind me, and then you do the same. We don't have that. In terms of what the other brother said, I've often said this as well. It does not matter who's in office or who's your mayor or your governor. You have to take accountability for yourself. You gotta want to eat. And I wanted a hand up. I didn't want a handout. I never have wanted a handout. But I also decided that I was going to go and study the people who were living the life that I wanted to live.
Right.
I made a decision to study them. I made a decision to look for mentors. I didn't need anybody to come back and say, hey, Terrence, man, this is what I'm doing. It's like, if you live in the hood, you looking around your conditions and you seeing like, man, this is not, what I want, then you need to find somebody that has what you want, and you got to study them.
Right.
If you don't, then you're going to still be there because you're accountable for your life. Just like the brother said, education is really key. And the reason why they don't teach money in school, or they don't teach, because they don't need, first of all, you got a lot of economists that don't even know what real money is if we want to be real. Real money ain't even this paper that we keep spending. Real money is gold and silver, but a lot of people aren't educated on that. This is currency that we use. This is not money. We use currency. The United States dollar bill was taken off the gold standard when Richard Nixon was president.
Yeah.
When that happened, that took a lot of the economic education out of the United States. And if you go all the way back to the school system, which, your cousin just alluded to, that we all graduated probably from a school that was in the hood. When you understand that, Horace Mann created the school system in the United States. And this school system was created for people to go to school and learn the curriculum that they wanted, for us to graduate and come out and work for the various companies that they created. And everybody outside of that, hey, we're going to push you off to the side because you're not useful to us. So they don't teach you real financial education, number one, in school. Number two, they don't teach you how to be an entrepreneur in school. They don't even teach you how to have a 9-to-5 job and then create multiple streams of income as well as have that 9-to-5 job. None of this is taught.
Right.
Yeah, I've never learned any of that. I learned all that when I got out of school. I didn't learn none of that in school.
Right.
So the thing is, for us to know this, we take it back to them, but they also got to be willing to accept, hey, this man knows what he's talking about. I often told my nephew one time, I said, I give you these books to show you the curriculum I created for myself, and you tell me you'll read them, but if I show up and I had this $100,000 in cash and I got to throw it up in there with a bunch of strippers on my shoulder, you pay attention to me. So we have to understand that, we have to reach them where they at sometimes.
Right.
Because they're not really going to pay attention. I got to pull up in my damn business and to get their attention. But if I pulled up in my other, piece of crap cars I got, they don't pay me no,
right.
They ain't paying me no attention. You know what I mean?
I think speaking on that, Drew, was you familiar with Nipsey Hussle?
Yeah.
You was familiar? Okay, so Nipsey was, I don't know if we can call him a philanthropist, but this brother was, he was in the hood and he was very tuned in.
Mm-hmm.
And he spoke on the same thing that you're talking about, Terrence.
Yep.
Spending your money, being very frugal with your money, not wasting it on foreign objects, not wasting it on, buying the gold and the cars and the whoop-de-wop, but, investing in yourself, investing in your community, investing in property, having some tangible, something you can put your hands on, and you can send that back to your children. So generational wealth. Drew, coming from Jamaica, you was not born here in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
What makes you why is you different? And you can see what's different and from where you came from to what we talking about right now. Because you got 3 naturally born American brothers here that are not in that devastated predicament, but we see things different. What you need to enlighten us.
We always talk about we're on the same page because you literally asked the question to the stuff that I was going to say anyway. So
okay,
so that's
well, that's how we do it.
I'm sitting there like, here we go again.
Yeah,
you know, your cousin, man. And again, fellas, it's just the way I am, man. I keep blowing y'all up. It's just I'm loving the fact that I'm here kicking it with y'all. Just it's just me, man. I get excited about this, and your cousin pointed out some things, about school. He started this whole thing about education. I was thinking about that, and then I think about something he said where he said, "Yo, you have to know where you're coming from to know where you're going." See, for me, the year my mom passed away, and again, this is just me and my spiritual beliefs. It's like the Lord just put it in her to share this with me about her childhood. It's not something that I would talk about here because it's straight up slavery, my mom's childhood, and how she was raised by her father, what she told me. The only thing I can, compare that to would be slavery for a little kid. So she didn't have a lot of education. But what makes me different, to answer your question, is when I was about 5 years old, what I saw that woman did with 1 pack of cigarettes. She didn't smoke. I remember being a little boy at what we used to call the Spanish Town bus terminus. That's what we call it, bus terminus. It's actually a bus terminal where all the buses come and then go back out to all different places of the country. This woman took 1 pack of cigarettes and sold 1 cigarette each for 25 cents. Then I remember that 1 pack of cigarette turned into a carton of cigarettes. And I can't give you a time frame, but I remember it went from a carton of cigarettes to she had this huge table that we call it a stall, where she had chips, cigarettes, candy. She had all these snacks. She had a little store. It started with 1 pack of cigarettes. I've never forgotten that. That's a story I actually share in job interviews when I go on a marketing job interview, because that's my background. My passion is actually in digital marketing. So that passion for marketing came from what I saw my mom doing as a little kid. She's always trying to sell something to make money, to put food on the table. You know what I'm saying? I had that. There wasn't a father figure there before my stepdad came in the picture. This was one woman raising 6 children in a third world country. But she hustled, man, and she made it happen. And, one of the things with our kids today, a lot of our kids only have 1 parent in the house. But that's still no excuse, because we're talking about no excuses, right? These young brothers were out there gangbanging. Their mom needs to catch them and whoop their butts, man. I mean, look, a young brother I'm talking to sent me this picture he got from Facebook. It blew me away, man. It was a sister in Cincinnati throwing a 13-year-old a birthday party. She had strippers at this young man's birthday party, man.
I remember you showed me that.
Bro, strippers, man, at your 13-year-old birthday party? What are we doing?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then come to find out, he told me this kid beat her up 2 weeks earlier. So this kid is putting his hands on his mom. Forget that he's putting on a woman. He's putting his hand. That's what we're raising. That's what we have in our communities. We, as parents, whether it be the mom or the dad, I pray to God it could be both. But whoever is there, you got to take your kid and say, listen, you're not going to be no gangbanger. You're not going to be out there running the streets. I want you to be better. Was LeBron James' dad in the house? I don't think so. I think it was just his mom.
Yeah.
And she saw that the boy had a talent, so she made sure he stayed away from that. You're going to go play ball. And she made sure he did that. And he grew up to be, this great basketball player that a lot of people look up to.
Right.
What's the first thing he did? He took his kids out of the community he grew up in.
Right.
He removed them. He could afford just so, that's one thing. But it starts at home, man. I mean, it's unfortunate because the parents are probably uneducated themselves and they don't know what to teach and pass on to their children. And I understand that. You know what I mean? But we need to go back to, as your cousin said, voting, get leaders in positions where they're going to come up with programs that's going to help parents. In Jamaica, they had community centers where parents could go and learn different things. There weren't jobs for them to go to after they're done learning. They were just educating them. You know what I mean? It starts. It's amazing how that's the key, bro.
So are we lost? Is Kevin? Are we lost? Is the community lost now? Because this is what he's talking about. This is a generational cancer, so to speak. Because when you was coming up, I was born some years after you, but I was still affluent. I was still introduced. I had both of my grandparents here.
Both of my parents was in the house. I didn't just get my behind whooped. I was a latchkey kid. My neighbor busted my behind if I got, in trouble in school. Then Mama Deuce came home, and then we got wore out. And then Dad came home, and so I'm still in that era. But we have a generation now that was affected by the Lyndon Baines Johnsons, that was affected by the New Deal, that was affected by WIC, Women, Infant, and Children, that part of government giving, as you say, the handout, so to speak, where the woman's not supposed, you don't marry the daddy, you keep him out the house, or we're gonna take your money. We're not gonna educate you, and we're not gonna give you any skills, because if we give you skills, then you won't depend on us, which means we won't have your vote. Right. I'm not a big Trump supporter, but shout out DJT 45 for the new law that he just passed to almost override college education and have the government look at people that have skills. He wants to push skills because a lot of blacks they don't want to go to school. They don't want to go to college, but they can get a skill, and that'll help them bring them out of this poverty. Some people don't want to see that, but that's fine. Are we lost, bro? Because a lot of people think that there's no coming back from this. We have to figure out a way to come back from that.
I don't think we lost, but I think we're distracted though.
Big time.
Say it again.
I think we're distracted.
Yeah, we're distracted.
Yeah.
It's like my brother Knight was saying, checkers versus chess. Okay, I get it. The guy who's in now, he's not your ideal president. I get that.
Right.
But people are consumed. It's like a cult that he don't even know he running.
Right.
And we just say so freaking tunnel vision on every move that he does that we don't see nothing else.
Right.
We don't see nothing else. There was a 1242 bill that was passed. I think it was representative down in Virginia passed it 2017, and he went all the way up. And the president, the current president, he signed it. No one knew about that bill. You know what the bill was? Everything that you saw on Juneteenth was something that was passed. There was free monies that could have been, there was a commission set up that was supposed to, they realized the plight of the African-American, the black male, because of slavery and all these different phases of dispensation all the way up until now affect the black community.
Right.
And this money was supposed to be for educational purposes to educate the United States on the plight of the black man. Now, I sent that out to these individuals that, civil rights leaders or whatever,
right? And
nobody wanted to talk about it. Nobody wanted to talk about it. Now, we had a little simple, when Juneteenth came, because of the Black Lives Movement,
right?
And the statues, all the stuff that's going on, and everybody focuses on Juneteenth. But we don't educate ourselves, and we get distracted off of this guy who does all kinds of things, and it throws us off our game.
Yeah,
it just throws us off our game. But I don't think we lost. I think there's hope. We got to find a way how we can get focused and things like this podcast and your entertainment venues, people like LeBron James, schools and stuff like that. There's hope, but I don't know how you can point that compass back to get everybody kind of like back on track,
So where we are right now, before we wrap this up, we have to find a way to raise up young, fresh minds, young, loud, fresh voices, so that we can start to see before we die, before we leave this place. Yes, sir. We have to figure out a way to see these effectual changes that we need to help bring about positive influence in our community, positive change, to get bills passed that will affect us in a positive light.
we need to figure out how do we do that. How do we influence the youth to do that? And how do we give them an outlet so that their voices are heard? YouTube is censoring everything. I told you before we came on, Kev, that they censoring. I mean, my last podcast, bro, they took stuff out that was you know, it was big, it was huge, it was information that was real. They took that out. So, Drew, we have to figure out, how do we do this? How do we go from here, bro?
You know, I was thinking about something, and it you know, forgive me if it doesn't exactly answer your question. It's just I was just thinking about something you said way back in the beginning of our conversation. You said you said something about
post-traumatic slave disorder.
Post-traumatic slave disorder.
Yes.
Dr. Joyce DeGroy,
yes,
I think is her name.
Yes.
And I think what she called it was post-traumatic slave syndrome, I think is what she calls it.
Yeah.
And a lot of our people don't know about that. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because, you know, you said I had a little bit of issue before I come over here, and I was just running late, and, you know, my temper was getting, you know, I was getting upset, my temper getting the better of me. And there's something that we struggle with in the Black community, and that is emotional, you know, emotional intelligence, you know. And I always talk about us killing each other and the violence against each other. And, you know, let's remove white people. Let's remove everybody else and just look at Black people as a whole. Look over in South Africa, you know, or not just South Africa, look at Africa itself. I mean, we're still killing each other over there. And I don't think we can blame that on white man. It's like we have this problem with each other, with ourselves. And Dr. DeGroy, she explained that slavery and what happened to the parents from the slave masters, then they go home and they have this attitude and this anger, all the stuff has to do with the psyche. And they treat their children a certain way, anger. You know, I talk about my mom whooping my butt. I mean, it wasn't just no ordinary butt whooping, but the psyche and the way we relate to each other, and we're so quick to anger and so quick to hurt each other, right?
Yeah.
These changes that we're talking about, man, honestly, we need to get our heads sorted out. And what I mean by that, I don't mean that in no disrespectful way or anything. I mean, you know, because, okay, you can educate someone and that's going to help with the way they carry themselves. It's going to help with the way they communicate with each other, but there's still going to be issues there. Right? We need to get ourselves, you know, really and truly looked at in terms of what's wrong with us. Why do we have these feelings inside?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I hate the fact I can't remember it now, because I looked at a statistic and it had to do with the suicide rate of young Black people, and I can't remember it for whatever reason, but it was a staggering number, man.
Well, we're gonna have to
you know,
look
we talk
that
about
up.
educating ourselves,
Right.
bro. It's so big. I'm talking about the HIV crisis in Black colleges. There's so much when it comes to our community. And so we have to narrow it down. We have to narrow it down because you can't take on this huge, big project. You know, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
Honestly, it's always going to go back to education, because then from there you're intelligent enough to make better decisions. But I just had that thought about when you said post-traumatic slave
disorder.
Disorder. It made me think about that and how I felt before I came over here, and why the hell did I feel like that, and this lack of emotional intelligence in our youth.
What you got, Kev?
Go ahead, brother.
It's just this term called self-fulfilling prophecy.
Okay.
Something you just hit on, and I hate it. The media will say that we got these things going on in the Black community. It's crime is so high in the Black community. And you keep on pumping it. You know what? Here in Elton, Maryland, they have the same problem. They have a drug problem that's like no other drug problem is, but you will never hear it on the news.
Never heard it.
You know, and that's why I come to that term, self-fulfilling prophecy. When you start pumping stuff on somebody and you telling somebody or kid that he ain't gonna be nothing, you ain't nothing, you ain't gonna never be nothing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
That kid stop believing that after a while.
After a while, yeah.
And that's what we have to stop. Sometimes we have to stop feeding into the stuff that the media tells us. We have to stop feeding into all this negativity. And you know how you do it. Once again,
Terrence,
know.
I'm sorry. I need to ask Terrence this
Yeah,
because
please,
this is
go ahead.
going on what Kevin's talking about. This is going back to what you were saying.
Yes.
Terrence, how do we address 3 weeks ago, Father's Day weekend, Chicago, Illinois, 100 people shot. This is a regular. Anytime it get hot,
Absolutely.
anytime the weather get hot, it get hot on them streets.
Yes, sir.
How do we take responsibility? Because I have a lot of folks, and this whole where do we go from here theme, the whole Black Lives Matter theme, Black Lives don't matter to Black lives, and then people say, well, like let's look at Chicago, 3 weekends in a row, you have almost 100 people dead at the hands of other Black folk. So taking responsibility. How do we address this? How do we address this issue in our community? It's not to the point where we're denigrating our own people or making them feel, what'd you say that was called, Kevin?
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Self-fulfilling prophecy, where we're not fulfilling the self-fulfilling prophecy, but we're being responsible, and we're making Black folks be responsible in their own community to where we can fix that and address that issue. Because without that being fixed, without that being addressed, bro, our lives ain't gonna matter to nobody, no matter where we are on this planet, if we continue to allow that to happen.
Yeah, I agree. That's the first thing. Our lives gotta matter to each other. Never mind what it matters to this country. We gotta matter to each other. And so we need to go in and like the brother was saying, we gotta fix the psyche of our people first. We were trained and conditioned to go against each other.
Yeah.
That's why, we were separated, field Negro, house Negro, blood, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
There was he's better than you because he's doing this, mentality. So now, generations later, we in the hood and we killing each other. Which goes back to what I said. We got to take people back. And we got to go back in there and we got to say, hey, listen, man, they programmed us to be this way.
Right.
We basically was an experiment. And so now here it is in 2020, we got the right now to come together and take care of ourselves in this community. And that's how we pick the pieces back up. But like, your cousin was saying, all of this really is a self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, it's metaphysics at its best. Your mind, the subconscious mind doesn't know right from wrong. So whatever you feed it, that's what's going to eventually come out.
Right.
So, again, if you keep telling these brothers, man, the high crime rate, we're 13% of this country. According to the statistics, the median home income level is $37,000 for Blacks, which is dead last in the United States.
Dead last.
The Hispanic community is number 4. And then you have the white community, and then you have the Asians. So if these numbers keep getting pumped down into the community and 24/7, the news media perpetuates things on to not just our youth, but to us as a people in general, then we're going to always have issues where you have podcasts like this one or several other different ones I can name that will teach you the truth.
Yeah.
If you keep listening to all this news media, who are backed by certain people who have their agenda that they want to push, and here we are listening to it, and then we go out here and we have this thought process of, well, damn, I can't get a job. Damn, I can't get a loan, or damn, I can't do this, or maybe I need to go shoot him, or maybe I need to go rob from him. This is what happens when you allow that to continue to move on and you don't have anybody to say, hey, no, that's not really what it is.
Right.
Because I get angry at this Black Lives Matter movement every day. I'm like, they can't speak for me. Al Sharpton, I just got blocked, just by let y'all know, I just got blocked from Jesse Jackson's Instagram and Twitter. I can no longer be a part of that because I went on there and
you went on there and you gave him the business, bro.
Yeah.
You can win, just
Yeah, I'm blocked from that brother's stuff because I went on there and I basically let him know. I said, listen, man, you need to start telling the truth to our people.
Yeah.
Stop all this foolery, man. I'm not with all the foolery. And I'm not with the foolery from the BLM movement as well. And like I said, a lot of these particular movements like this, they perpetuate certain stuff on our people, man.
They really do.
Speaking on, Drew,
I wanted to read something to you guys. And honestly, you guys probably already know this. This is something I just found out here. And Terrence, you mentioned Black Lives Matter, that they don't speak for you, nor do they speak for me or anyone in my family. But this, I guess, it's not a business, so I can't call it a business statement, but like maybe their
mission statement.
Mission statement, thank you. I'll read it here. Their mission statement says, "We are self-reflexive and do the work required to, keyword, dismantle cisgender privilege and uplift Black trans folk, especially Black trans women who continue to be disproportionately impacted by trans antagonistic violence. We build a space that affirms Black women and is free from sexism, misogyny in environments in which men are centered. We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure."
That's big.
Period. I'm gonna leave it right there. If anybody else want to know the rest of it, I suggest go educate yourselves. You know what I mean? But when I hear that dismantle, you talking about taking apart.
Yeah.
You talking about
which is why that's and I mean cut you off, but that's one of the reasons why I don't let them. They can't speak for me.
No.
So that leads me to this point, Kevin. Going back to the whole thing of we all know that Black folks are we are some of the most resilient people on the planet. When you say bounce back, bro, we bounce back. We can turn hog guts into a Southern delicacy right now called chitlins.
Right.
We've gone through the transatlantic slave trade. We've gone through Jim Crow. We've gone through lynchings. We've gone through the terror of the KKK in the South. We have gone through countless men and women being tested with diseases and being worked on by the government. We've gone through conspiracy. We've gone through conspiracy. We've gone through conspiracy. Yet we have delivered you, senators. We've delivered you, judges. We've delivered you some of the most sound minds in law. We have given you doctors, literal brain surgeons. We have given you some of the best athletes the world has ever known. Yet still, here we are, and we have nothing to show for it. In our community right now, we have so many, I don't even know what the word I can put on this, influential Black folk. You hear me, Drew?
Yes.
That have money. We have the LeBron Jameses in every single community, and I think I said this before, anywhere that there is an NFL team, anywhere that there's an NBA team, anywhere that there's a Major League Baseball team, and there is anyone that is Black that is in this arena right now, that they are with this civil rights deal, that they are tired of having that knee on the neck. You feel me, Drew? Mm-hmm. Anywhere one of those people exists, it only takes $20 million to start a bank and be FDIC insured. Where that is, they need to step up. The Jay-Z's, the Beyoncé's, the all of these entertainers that have this money, that are out here with the what's my man from San Francisco that was the football player? What's his name?
Kaepernick.
Cap. If you are on the same plane as Cap, we can't hear you talking no more. You got to step up. If George Soros, who is not an American citizen, who has donated hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, to dismantle the function of the United States government, to dismantle how we live our lives, because he does not agree with where we are, what we do, and how we live. If he can put his money up to disrupt that, why can't Black America put their money up?
Oprah, where you at?
To help invest in our communities.
Oh, I did sign up for One United.
Overseas, Oprah building schools
Yeah.
over in Africa, which
I was gonna.
that's cool. I agree with that, but build some schools here in the hood.
In the hood.
Teach
Yeah, I was gonna.
trade skills, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say that there are 21 different black-owned, 100% black-owned banks here in the United States. I just think that a lot of people don't research it enough to know that. As far as Oprah is concerned, Oprah too busy bashing our brothers anyway to even pay attention to a lot of the things that's going on in our community. I think she's kind of so far removed that she forgot what it's like.
Man.
Yeah. So,
A black
but I mean,
there, bro.
I'm I'm with like I said, for me to sum it up from my position on it all, I'm gonna go back to hit something real quick that Kev said earlier, that a lot of people, your cousin also said it too. We're being distracted by the things that Donald Trump, that people want us to believe that Donald Trump is doing, but in reality, Donald Trump has signed so many different things in the law just within the last 2 years that have helped our demographic of people further what it is that we're doing. I mean, if you went to, I don't know, some people support HSBCUs. I don't know if y'all know, but every single year, HSBCUs had to go to the federal government and ask for help in funding every single year. Trump signed into law that now they will be given $250 million broken down to all HBCUs every single year for the rest of their existence. No other president has done that. So you look at the fact that he signed into law that to bring people home, which 91% of our people who were incarcerated got brought home.
First step back.
Yeah, the First Step Act. So Angela Stanton is one of them. 15 years in prison. Came out single mother, 4 children. Now is getting ready to run for congresswoman in Georgia. There's a lot of things that Trump's done that they don't want to put out. School choice, where you can choose to send your child, as we talk about education.
Yeah.
You choose to send your child to a better school system, whereas you couldn't do it. You were bound to be wherever your zip code was, and you had to go to school there. Trump's done a lot of different things, but for me to sum it up, at the end of the day, it boils down to economic empowerment, and it boils down to accountability. And if we don't have that in our community, then we're going to lose.
Yeah.
Regardless of the fact.
No matter what.
That's just what it is. Yeah.
Kevin, I know you spoke earlier before we round this out. You spoke earlier about reparations, that we're not getting the 40 acres and a mule. I can agree with you on that. I have a proposal myself that I think would be beneficial. It would not marginalize groups, but it could impact Black America in a significant way. If you cannot give us the 10 acres and a mule, and the reason why I'm saying this is because, do I believe that we need not a handout, but we need what is owed to us? Absolutely. They did land grabs that took land from indigenous folk that were here. There were Black Indians that lived here. The reason why I know this is because there were Black Indians in my family. And if you do not understand or you do not recall the Gullah Wars of the 1800s, then research the Gullah Wars. We talked about this before. But there is things that we are due, that we are owed, that our ancestors slaved and died for. Do I think that we need to give $150,000 to each Black American in this? No, because there are people, like Terrence said, they are financially ignorant. They don't understand that. Give us a 10 or 15-year tax abatement. Give us interest-free, completely for life interest-free loans to go to college. Give us those things. Help us. We're not telling you, I'm not saying give me no handout, but give us what's due us. Allow us the opportunity to have, which one sister I heard on Facebook, she gave the analogy of Monopoly. We played this game with you for 400 years. Every time we start to make a move on the Monopoly board, and it's a move that you don't like because we're progressing, we're getting better, you burn our money. You take our cars, you put us on chance, and then we land on chance, we end up in jail for something that we didn't do, or we have the judicial system come up against us and all of these different factors, but we never are given an opportunity to actually be who we should be because there's always something in our way. So, having said that, Kevin, off of what you said earlier and off of what Terrence is saying, what's the next step on this? What happens now? What happens next?
Wow, it's basically like my brother Knight said. You know, we get that education going. You got to understand, which I just learned about voting, not just voting, but being, you know, learning about the lobbyist situation, and not to be distracted. Not to be distracted. And education is just a big thing with me. And like right now, we got all this time because everybody's in the house. What are we doing with all the time? You know,
Terrence, we talked about that.
got a lot of time. I mean, I for instance, One United, you know, I used to see them pop up all the time. Bam, 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 pop up. I said, let me check them out. I read up on them. Dropped $1,000 on them, man. Them jokers are. It was easy.
And for those of you who do not know what he's talking about One United Bank. This is a black-owned bank, it's the largest black-owned bank online that you can be a part of, and they have a lot of assets and they have a lot of products to offer you.
It take the time out. You have to study them, you know, and learn them. But yeah, it's education is my number one thing. Is, you know, and I think that we can move the needle a little bit better.
Yeah, Drew, this is it right here. He's saying, you know, we all have heard, each one of us say that we've been distracted. So we have folks in our community that have no ability to live in the wild. They don't understand how to build a fire. They don't know how to survive outside of their element. Some folks have never held a gun. Some folks, they don't know how to cultivate land to grow food. So if there was a revolution, as we saw these 200 brothers down in Georgia at Stone Mountain, and they were answering the call to the KKK. Okay, they were answering the call. Somehow, I guess some message got put out. It's kind of like a threat of some sort. I still don't know all the intricacies, but these brothers showed up 200 deep, strapped to the gills, bro. You feel me? So everybody in our community cannot do that. We are distracted by not Desperate Housewives, but Love and Hip Hop in Atlanta, New York, whatever. A lot of us are distracted by that. We're distracted by the video games and the lack of education and all of these other side things, this minutia that don't really matter. We're distracted. How do we get us undistracted? For those of us that are listening, for those of you that are paying attention, that aren't, as I call, Negro bots, and you just running around with no purpose. How do we get them undistracted, bro? I mean, you have them. You have some Negro bots.
Yeah, you're right.
They just running around, bro.
That's why it's funny.
Yeah. So, Drew, how do we go undistracted from here?
You know, again, listening to the brothers, including yourself, and that's why we click like the way we do, just listening to you guys talk. The thing that it seems like the one thing that we all share is that desire, right? Each of you guys had a desire, you had a drive, you had a need and a want for better, okay? And I think a lot of our young men, either it's because they don't know, they don't care, whatever, but it's like there's a lack of desire, right? So it starts with that. You gotta want more.
Yeah.
Right? You gotta want more. I told you about a young brother I met at my job. Came from Missouri. Real quick story here, man. The kid, I met him and I was training him on my job, young brother, and he told me something. He said, "Hey, man, the government where I live in Missouri, they basically labeled me as, you know, some educational disorder. Basically, say he can't learn. He's ignorant, can't learn. So basically, they were giving his family a certain amount of money because he's incapable of learning." So I said, "Man, how'd you get your CDL, man?" He said, "Oh, the same program that they were using to give him free money. He used that same program to get money to get his CDL." And I said, "Why'd you do that?" He's like, "Because I wanted more money than what they were giving me." That's that need and that desire for more. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And it starts with that. And it keeps coming back to education, because if you don't know, then you just don't know, and then you're stuck. But you have to have that need, that want, that desire. When my family came here individually, they didn't want to just come and depend on the government. They wanted more. That's why we came to America.
Yeah.
Because we wanted more. That's why we put blinders on in terms of racism. You can call me the N-word, whatever you want. I know what I want is straight ahead.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going for. All this other stuff, man, I don't see it. I don't hear it. I don't have time for it. I'm not saying it's not real.
Yeah.
It's real.
100%.
And it's a package on your back that you're gonna have to carry, man.
Right.
But you can't give up on yourself. You can't give
No
up
doubt.
on your family. You can't give up on your community. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they got to have that drive and that passion. And like I said, I listen to you guys, and it's there, man. It's you know.
You
and
just gotta
need
get
brothers
more
like
of them like
yourselves
that.
out in the community, encouraging these young brothers.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Encouraging, motivating them, talking to them, telling them options that they have. You know, I don't know nothing about finances, but guess what?
Well, I'll tell you what, we're gonna have a session where we have
Absolutely.
Terrence on here, and if he's willing, and he has the time, that he can break down that intel to try and ignite some type of desire for people to get out of their slump. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because we need that.
Your cousin mentioned being a motivational speaker. We need more of that in the community.
Absolutely. And,
I don't understand. What I also don't understand, and you hit on it. How come people from China come over here, Jamaica, all these different countries, they don't have nothing? They starting with zero, and the next thing you know, 5 years they got a store in our neighborhood.
In our neighborhood.
I don't get that.
Yeah. There's got to be a reason behind that, and and we frequent them. But and then we also have to understand what happens to make Black folk not trust each other to do business with each other, but we do business with other folks. And again, this is not a call. This is not contempt toward Asians or whites or whomever, but it's just like, yo, why are we so easy to spend money with Terrence's neighbor? Yet Terrence might have the same business, but we won't go to Terrence first. We trust them before.
Somebody mentioned about love and hip hop. Was that you?
Yeah.
Why are we showing love and hip hop? Why, you know what I mean? Like, what's love and hip hop got to do with, you know what I'm saying? How is that going to help our young brothers and sisters? We're showing, you know what they're showing these kids, man. It's not something positive.
Right. That's the distraction.
You know what I'm saying?
Go ahead.
Let me inject on that. I know if y'all know about the CCP, which is the China Communist Party.
Yeah.
The CCP has such a stronghold in the United States, which is the reason why we walk around here looking like communist China with all these masks on. But we can have that discussion another day.
Absolutely.
But the thing about that is that foreign people come over, and our government has a clause that states each one of these foreign people that come over, they are supposed to give them a certain amount of time and the resources to get started in this country. So when you have the Chinese people come over into our communities and they start beauty supply stores or they start Chinese restaurants or what have you, this is the reason why they have that, is because of the fact that they give that to them when they come here.
Right.
And then, like you said, Kevin, we do support them in a major way, and we will not support our own people that have businesses here in the United States. But that goes back to the plan that they had to make us think that they were better and that we were not. So we start buying products from everybody else but our own people.
Right.
So that's just one of the things that we do. But I think, you know how I am about, I told you the other day when we talked, you know, we don't have the education of credit in our community. And so even forget about the the money and the finances right off the rip. Credit is currency.
Yeah.
Which you said you'll have me on to talk about, you know, stuff like that later on. And I'll gladly come back and explain that. But if we understood that, then you would understand that you can build whatever you want. You can have whatever you want. I'm a prime example. I mean, I hold, well, I don't want to talk about it, but I hold a lot of, you know, space in the real estate market here in Oklahoma City, only because I learned how to use credit as currency.
Right.
I never walked into a bank and had to put a down payment on nothing. I never walked in there with, I don't know, 30, 40, $50,000, and I could always walk out of there with 100,000, 200,000, whatever the heck it was,
Right.
and be able to go and make a change in the community, because I understood. Well, first I got taught how to navigate the credit system.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that we as our demographic of people, because I try to do what your cousin said about saying negative things, and we started to believe it. So I try not to call us black
What's
people
that called
anymore.
again, Kevin?
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, self-fulfilling prophecies. Yeah, absolutely. Because when you understand the word black, just like if you understand the words that you use, spelling, they call it spelling because when you speak, you put spells out. And that's why they call it that. So I don't call anybody black anymore because I understand that black in terms of the dictionary means absolutely nothing.
Negative.
Yeah.
That's why it's called black ball, black hawk, black whatever. It's nothing.
Black
So
man.
I always call, So, I always use the word, our demographic of people, or our people need to understand that credit is very, very important. The education of your credit is very important. If you don't understand that, you're always going to be playing second. That's what they do. Every one of the wealthy other demographics, they don't use their own money. It's like you brought up Jay-Z earlier. Jay-Z and Beyonce have a $300,000 mortgage for 30 years on an $82 million piece of property. Why do you think that is? Because they use credit. They didn't use their own money.
Right.
Why would they? So we have to understand that and be educated on that as much as we need to be educated on, first of all, entrepreneurship and other various streams of income so that we can take back over our communities. Because if we don't, Mary and I right now are trying to put a black beauty supply store in 2 of our communities here right now, just to be transparent, because I'm like what you said, I get sick and tired of our people having to go down here and buy the products that we use from them.
Right.
Yeah. So it's just, that's what we have to do.
Yeah. So we definitely gonna have you on here, bro. I cannot say thank you enough to both of you coming and joining me and Drew the Yachty today. Anytime you guys want to come on here, we can. Kevin, you have a podcast. Where can the folks find you and your people?
Well, I have a podcast called Real Life Talk with my brother. He's Hispanic, Latino. We haven't been really doing anything lately. We just been he's been posting a lot of stuff. So we got to get back to that. I have my own personal podcast. It's Let's Talk About adoption and foster care, being though I was a product of that culture, which is a whole new different ball game. Kevin can tell you, I just found my family about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
But anyway,
and we can get you on here to, if you want to ever delve into that, because there are a lot of black youth that are part of that.
It's deep.
They have no direction. They don't know where to go. Nobody cares about them. They feel lost.
Right.
There's nobody in their corner. They don't have anybody. They got folks that look like them, but they are not like them. And they
worse than that, some of them got folks that don't look like them.
Right.
Raised up in a home that they lost their culture and everything. It's a form of slavery.
So if you want to ever come on and we can delve into that, we most definitely can.
No problem.
Having said that, guys, again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on here, and we could talk for hours, but
learned a lot. Learned a lot.
We learn every day. So again, I want to give sponsor shout out
to Black Rhino Logistics, also Rare Breed Athletics, and I also want to give a shout out to Kevin's organization, livingmyshadows.org. Those links will be in description if you would like. Kevin has material on there. If you could support him as well and pick up his book, which is available, Living My Shadows. Again, livingmyshadows.org. I will have those links in the description, guys. Please go support him.
Terrence, my love for you is deep, bro.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, it's deep for you and Mary, and thank you so much for being on here. You are a treasure trove of information, and I definitely want to get you back on here again so that we can peel the lid back on this credit information so folks can start to free themselves from the hells that they are living in. Drew, you got anything you want to throw in here, bro?
No, I just want to thank both brothers as well, man. And Most High's blessings on both of you and your family, man, and all your loved ones. We definitely need that these days, man.
Yeah, respect.
Boys.
So, again, for all of you out there,
thank you for joining us on this podcast. Myself, Big Kev, and Drew the Yardie, we thank you. Please share this video. Smash that like button. If you haven't already, it doesn't cost you anything. It's free. And you can help us raise up the youth in our community and liberate them so that they can have a fighting chance in the future. Again, thank you all for being here. We love you. Change your mind, change your community, change your surroundings. Fight every day. Do not give up, and love those around you. Blessings and peace to all. Have a good day.
Right.
Peace.
One love.